Forgotten But Not Gone is another decent episode of Frasier. I don't think this will ever be a favourite, but I certainly enjoy it well enough. This is the 18th episode of Season 8. It's directed by Pamela Fryman, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode chronologically and share some thoughts. And it starts off with Niles at the wine club giving a speech as Cork Master. Frasier then arrives with some good news. He is resigning the wine club, as he is now featuring the wine corner on KACL. And Frasier is asked why he can't do both, and he says, and I quote, "Like this camembert, I'm at my most delicious when I'm not spread too thin," which I think is a great message. You can do more if you do less. And I think that that's great. He's putting more time and effort into this wine corner segment, and it will allow him to hopefully deliver a stronger segment than if he were to spread himself too thin, which I liked. It's a quote I enjoyed, and I think we could all do well to utilise that quote in our daily lives. It's then time for the show, for the segment at the end of Gil's show. Lance is being a bit snippy for some reason, but Frasier is in a great mood, and he then ends up on the radio show sometime later having to tell somebody that the date on the bottle of wine is not the expiration date. It's not the kind of conversation he expected to be having. He's upset that nobody from the wine club called. We then cut to the apartment. Frasier's at home working on something for his audience, and he reads out something and he asks Martin, "You don't think it's clear that I enjoyed the wine?" To which Martin responds, and I think this is my favourite quote in the entire episode, "I don't think it's clear that you're talking about wine," which I love, and he has a point. Granted, the people listening are going to be aware he's talking about wine, unless you were flicking through the stations and tuned in randomly, but at the same time, brilliant, brilliant quote. And then Martin's new temporary physical therapist arrives. This is Frederica, played by the wonderful Jennifer Coolidge. She's a lot. She's not Daphne, she's quite different to Daphne. She's absolutely fabulous. Frasier goes back to writing. We then hear a scream coming from Martin's room. She's clearly working him hard. Frasier then gets a call and is informed that Niles told the wine club not to call the radio show. That's why nobody phoned in. Well, would they have phoned in anyway? Frasier would probably like to think so. So, of course, Frasier, angry, goes down to the wine club. They argue, things get heated. Niles calls him former brother, and Frasier leaves. And that stung. Even as a viewer, I felt that. I felt the bitterness in Niles's words. Beautifully delivered. I don't like them fighting. They're bickering, I don't mind, but for Niles to call him a former brother over something as ridiculous as this, it hurts. Plus also Niles is Niles in the wrong? He did just enforce part of the wine club legislation, but at the same time, it's a stupid legislation. So technically Niles was not in the wrong, and as Cork Master, I assume it is his job to do that, but he didn't need to. And I think he did it purely because he was feeling annoyed that Frasier had chosen his radio segment over the wine club. We are then back at the apartment. Martin is eating dinner while Frasier is moping around the house. Frasier doesn't have any plans now because usually he goes to the wine club on a Wednesday evening. I think it was Wednesday. I didn't write that down. And he says that he and Martin can hang out. Martin says that he usually spends wine club night enjoying the silence. And then he tells Frasier, and I love this, it gives us a little glimpse of what it might have been like growing up with Martin as their father, as he tells Frasier the wine club will probably fail without him, it'll be no fun, and it was just to make him feel better, to cheer him up, because his pride had been wounded. Nobody wants to talk to him, they'd rather be at the wine club. Of course, Frasier does realise what Martin's doing, but initially he did perk up when Martin started to say those things, and it kind of unleashed briefly a childlike quality in him, and I just thought it was really, really sweet. But as I said, Frasier does realise what Martin is doing. He then starts to talk about Martin's physical therapy, and yes, she is brutal and she is physically hurting him, but at the same time she can cook, which we know Daphne maybe isn't the best at, so Martin's happy to keep her around for now. And then we find out that Frasier had actually already apologised to Niles for the things he said, and Niles didn't want to hear it. And that hurts more than when Niles called him a former brother. In a way, I feel like Niles owes Frasier an apology as well. But also, I'm the kind of person who doesn't believe in just accepting apologies for the sake of it. If somebody apologizes to you, I don't believe that you should just automatically accept it, unless A, the person seems genuine, and B, you're ready to accept it. I believe Frasier probably would have sounded genuine. But while I do think Niles was partly in the wrong and should also apologise, if he's not ready to accept it, then it would be hypocritical of me to be annoyed at him for that. We're then back down at the wine club, and we have some more brilliant exchanges. Niles says, "I'm getting oak with plummy undertones," and a club member says, "I'm getting screwed on alimony," which was just random and unexpected. And then Martin comes in, which is also unexpected. He's dragged Frasier down to the wine club, and he says to Niles, "Niles, let your brother play." Again, giving us a glimpse into what it might have been like growing up with Martin as their father. And ultimately, the brothers shake hands. And now everybody at the club is laughing at them because their daddy gave them into trouble. Which is also probably what it was like growing up with Martin. But I found it to be adorable. I don't know if the other children might have been scared of Martin if he was a police officer. I imagine that would have been quite intimidating. I don't know if Niles and Frasier ever felt intimidated by him. I'm not sure, but certainly it did feel very realistic in this episode. We're then back at the apartment, and Niles comes over. It's time to go to the wine club, and Frasier decides he doesn't want to go anymore. And Niles remarks, "It used to be the wine club, now it's just the teasing people club," which, yeah, definitely seems believable, especially since a lot of them were less interested in the long, detailed discussions about the history of the various wines and were more interested in just drinking wine and having a good time and sharing their woes about alimony. And that's not what Frasier and Niles want. And as Frasier remarks, those people don't care about wine, and they decide to create their own club. And it ends with them fighting over a sash. So Martin cuts off a little bit of it to give it to Frasier, and then they trade. And I thought that was a fun way to end things. And I like that it's in keeping with the rest of the episode. Martin having to sort out his young son's difficulties in life, and obviously their childlike qualities really came through, which I thought was very sweet to see. So as I said, it's probably never going to be a favourite episode, but I thought Forgotten But Not Gone was still enjoyable, really entertaining. We had some great quotes there. Jennifer Coolidge was wonderful as well. So I think it's safe to say that it's always going to be one that I enjoy. I think there are some good lessons about how to behave, how to treat your brothers. I still think... Do I think that Niles was more in the wrong than Frasier? Honestly, I really don't know. I don't think Frasier did the wrong thing by going to focus on the KCL segment. I think that's absolutely fine. And as he said, it's better when he's not spread too thin like the camembert. But he definitely could have behaved more, I guess, maturely. But I do think Niles was in the wrong as well. Either way, good fun. Really enjoyable episode of Frasier. Never a personal favourite, but it's still really decent.